Faith-based leadership requires the courage to acknowledge the shadow self for the leader. And oftentimes, we know many leaders who are quite tough on others, but we don't often stop to realize or to consider that that is how tough they are on themselves, or that is just a
Mhm.
fraction. So the graces that we extend to others, leaders a lot of time need to remember to extend those graces to self. So today we have Sallie Wagner, who is really your life alchemist, and she'll tell you all about it. With a background in mythology, and she just recently finished her manuscript on faith, so we're quite excited. And of course, our co-host Mindy McManus, who is our authority on faith and spiritual based leadership. Welcome, ladies.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
So, Sallie, you can kick off the the conversation with the role of forgiveness and the embracing of shadow
Yes.
in leadership.
Yes. So when we talk about shadow, I'm always reminded of Carl Jung, and I'm probably not going to get the quote exactly right, but he says, until the unconscious becomes conscious, then we're going to project it and live it out in our lives, and we'll call it fate because we don't understand it. And so that's what shadow is. We have all of these painful experiences, traumas, low frequency emotions that we don't want to express or perhaps accept and acknowledge consciously, and yet we live it out, and so we live it out through projection onto others,
Or
and
judgment, which
exactly,
is
yes.
the dark side of projection.
Yeah, and then until we embrace all of that, we can't forgive ourselves, we can't forgive others. And so that's an essential part of the forgiveness process.
I love that. Mindy.
So I love that you brought up forgiveness because it is so important. And, even in the Lord's Prayer, it says, it asks that the Lord forgive us as we forgive others. Because it is so important that not only we learn how to forgive ourselves, but also forgiving others. Because when we are in a state of unforgiveness, that actually blocks a lot of our blessings. It actually blocks, if we can't, think about us. God forgives us, and think about all the stuff we've done. If God can forgive me, then I can forgive other people. And that's really what the Lord's Prayer is all about, is that please forgive me as I forgive other people, because I am not saying that I'm better than God and not forgiving, because God forgives everyone who asks for that forgiveness. But in real life, I also want to say, sometimes we have to forgive without somebody asking, because forgiveness is not about the other person. It is about us. And I just shared this with somebody. I heard it where they said, choosing to hold bitterness, resentment, and unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
I find, and this is again from my own journey, is that it is in my case, it's easier to forgive others than it is to forgive myself.
Yes.
Right. And oftentimes I tell people jokingly, but truth is spoken in jest, right? I jokingly say that it doesn't bother me other people's criticisms, because trust me, I am my worst critic. Right. And it wasn't until I read a quote recently. It wasn't even a quote. It was just, I can't remember how the reflection came about, but imagine if my internal voice was an internal voice, an external voice,
Mhm.
and I had someone clipping at my heels all day long, right? Like it would be outright abuse.
Yes.
And oftentimes we forget that people in leadership, yes, usually they have maybe perhaps a little bit of some privilege, perhaps a little bit of better pay, but their minds, actually Elon Musk says, a lot of people wish they were me, but trust me, you would not want to be me,
He's like,
right?
you don't want to be in here.
Correct.
He's had to deal with
Right.
a lot of different stuff. And, when you're thinking about forgiveness for yourself, I think, you're hitting the nail on the head. Leaders are very hard on themselves,
Yeah.
especially leaders within a Christian organization or within a church, because there's all of these, think about it. The expectation of people who are leading the church is that they're not human. And the thing is that we are human, and that we all fall short of God's grace, and we all sin. Like, even thinking about sinning, like Jesus said this when in his gospels, even thinking about sinning is sinning. So no
Even
one,
thinking about sinning is sinning. Goodness,
even
that's a
thinking about
pretty high
sinning,
standard. That's a
exactly,
pretty high
none
bar.
of us can reach it. None of
Yeah.
us can reach that. That's why Jesus died on the cross for us. And I don't mean to go down that direction, but that's why he did that, because none of us deserves God's grace, but he gives it to us anyways.
Anyways, yeah, that is so interesting. And so, Sallie, you do a beautiful, smooth fusion between the shadow work, which is Carl Jung's, he was a pioneer in that territory. And you do have a background in mythology, part of your, post secondary education. How how does it inform you as a leader?
So yes, my undergraduate was in theology, and
Theology, sorry. I
no,
keep
it's
calling
fine.
it mythology, and
No,
I know
and
Mindy
I
clips me at the nose every time, but that's
yeah,
okay.
no,
Completely different.
and it did include a lot of the studies of mythology and how beliefs evolve and change, and what's the basis for them. So I think it's important because it really, from my perspective, informs me on the development of faith. And in order to really embrace our faith and move to the next stage of faith, because there are demonstrable stages of faith, we need to deal with that shadow part of ourselves. As we talked earlier, until we really resolve that, we're leading from projection and from pain rather than from growth and grace. And
Stages
that's
in
so
development of faith. Sorry, I never heard it put like that.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is based on the work of James Fowler, who was a theologian. And he based his work on some very notable personality development psychologists, Jean Piaget, Lawrence Kohlberg, Erik Erikson, people like that. And you can look through the stages of people expressing faith, and there are stages. And sometimes it's like anything else, it's like resilience. And a lot of us think, well, you're born with it or you're not, or you are where you are. And that's not true. We can deepen and mature our faith as we move from one stage to the next. It takes a conscious choice. And that's where the leadership comes in, to make that conscious choice for ourselves as leaders, do all that work with shadow and embracing those, what a lot of us think of as the ugly, yucky parts of ourselves. And then we're better able to shepherd other people as they develop their own faith.
So, Carolina, I'm curious about your story and your levels of faith that I've seen you grow into and deepen into just in the 5 years that I've met you. So, how do you think that you have overcome that shadow as you continue to deepen your faith?
Oh, what an interesting question. And thank you, because I would not, of all the skills that I feel that I've strengthened, faith would not have been, and not that faith is a skill set, but it's a sense of a stage of awareness, I think, in a choice, you know. Mine started a little bit sideways, as always. It entered my life as gratitude and mindfulness, and just becoming grateful was something new. In articulating gratefulness, not just thinking it, but saying it out loud, right? And it began it began really as mindfulness. And somewhere along the way, I kind of realized that I talk about shadow, right? Like that I already knew this. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't new knowledge, right? Like it was more like new awareness. And in even though it's another funny thing, even though my career is very public, right? So even with friends from home, I'll feel that I haven't seen them in ages. And to them, it's like, yeah, I just saw you 3 times a week on Facebook, right? It's like, I'm up to date on your life and everything you think. But meanwhile, I don't see that, right? I don't get to see them like that. But even the Thoughtful Thursday last week, I changed it to Thankful Thursday.
Mm-hmm. I like
Because, and I think, Mindy, was something you said. You said you can't be grateful and anxious at the same time.
that. Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so yeah, it's been, I don't know why I'm having such a hard time with it, to be quite honest, because I'm a fairly quick study, like at everything I do. And this one is like, I feel it's not quite the little voices on each side, but I do feel, because it's so public, right? It's like declaring something public that I want to believe in, and I choose to want to believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it feels so scary and vulnerable. It's like you're saying, like, you can't put that genie back in the bottle, right? Like you can't unring that bell. So yeah, it is. I'm surprised
Yeah.
by how much thought is occupying, to be quite honest.
Well, and I'm not, because you haven't read the Bible yet.
Yes, I
And
know. I did own up to that the
oh,
other
I
day.
know. But I'm just saying, and it's just, because again, most people do. That
Mhm.
understanding doesn't come until you get into that Bible and you read God's word and you let him speak to you through the Bible. And when you read the Bible, you don't read it to find yourself, you read it to find God. And you look for God in the Bible, and you look for him and in his ways and how he is. If you look at it from that lens, because a lot of people look in the Bible trying to find themselves. The Bible
Yeah,
wasn't meant to find you. The Bible was for you to learn about God,
to find
his
God,
word.
yeah, and to inform. And the thought of leadership, and the three of us. I mean, Sallie, you lead a pretty massive, business with your deal with a lot of people, deal with a lot. And Mindy, you are definitely a public, spiritual, and C-suite leader in communication and everything you do. The thing is, most of us are also leaders at home,
Yes.
or we volunteer in other organizations within the community, right? So it's not like you're a leader from 9 to 5 and then you come home and it's like, good night Sam, good night Ralph, right? The leadership continues. So having the time, so the quote that we came across for today's show is, many leaders know how to perform strength, right? Everyone knows it and recognizes it, but far fewer know how to heal in private. And I'll give you an example. We just finished the Victoria Day long weekend in Canada. In so there's a lot going on in my life, and there usually is, like, toddler or Chihuahua espresso. But right now I've taken it up a few notches by other things that are happening. So Saturday and Sunday I worked physically, like I was painting a picket fence, and the joke was that I was mending fences with the house, right? Like I was doing a lot of reconciliation with the house. And I was busy and I was sore and I was happy. Like I did notice my thoughts were very happy and hopeful, right? Like positive. On Monday, yesterday, I kind of collapsed. I did nothing, like nothing. I could not move. I was so sore. And I did absolutely nothing, thinking I was going to take the day off and rest. You know what? The anxiety, the stress, the gazillion thoughts came knocking right back, and it was physically restful, but it was an anxious day, right? And is that healing in private? Like how? And I was fortunate that I could take the day off, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's weird that the minute my body stopped, the mind took over again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right?
And
We were not happy thoughts.
yeah, that's why we have to be intentional about changing our thoughts. First, recognizing that our thoughts are not good, and then saying, okay, what can I choose to be thankful for right now? And like for me, I get it. So I just look around my house and I just start looking for things to be thankful for, because you know what? Many people don't get to live in a house.
I love that you didn't say looking around for things to do.
Mm-mm.
You said looking around for things to be thankful for.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. My husband and I do that. Just this morning at breakfast, he said, we're so blessed. And we are. And we remind ourselves of that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to do the work, to be physical. Winston Churchill was a proponent of that. It helped him address
He chopped wood,
anxiety and
right?
depression. And he built brick walls. I mean,
it was brick walls. Sorry.
Yeah, he had a history of depression and anxiety, and so he felt that physical activity really pulled him out of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also important, as you did, to rest physically. Mm-hmm. And then we can look around ourselves. We can choose different thoughts. We can choose to be grateful. We can choose to see our blessings. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean life is all rainbows and lollipops, right? Life can be very hard. Yeah, it can.
Hard for everyone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we can still be blessed in the midst of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It can
different kind of hard.
It can always be worse.
Yeah.
Yes. And you know what? And that is absolutely true. But I was I think it's the first time where I was monitoring my thoughts, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 2 days that I was working, because I'm not listen, if you ever see a picture of myself out in nature or doing something like extraneous, it's AI. I'm an indoor girl. So, for me, and I was really looking forward to doing this picket fence painting exercise. And I was surprised how happy I was at it. And yeah, it almost felt like, okay, why am I feeling this happy? Like, what's wrong with me, right?
That's because you were tapping into your natural dopamine. So going outside, natural dopamine. So a lot of the times, like scrolling on your feed, that actually drains your dopamine, because it's constantly hitting your dopamine and it's draining your dopamine. So being outside helps to get your natural dopamine back up to where it needs to be. Doing physical activity, natural dopamine booster. Being in the sun, natural dopamine booster. Doing something for your home, because you were reconciling with your home, a natural dopamine.
It was an act of reconciliation, truly. And in speaking, and I can't remember if it was you, Mindy. Sorry, there's many mentor experts at PWT, and they're all like incredible conversations. And somebody said the importance of saying it out loud. I can't remember. Someone said it's not just thinking it, it's saying it out loud.
Yeah.
And what I love about the integration of shadow, which is, Sallie's really zone of genius, is that not everything that we put in the shadow is necessarily bad.
Right.
It was a judgment from an external, kind of thing, because everybody, and the hilarity, not hilarity, but the, like, everybody kept telling me, hire somebody to do these, like, like a lot of my friends, like, task rabbit, like, your rate and what things you need to do, you cannot afford to be out there doing these, right? And that is the constant, is like being guided by external voices, right? Like, and I only, they all meant well. I know it, and I know someone even from TaskRabbit would have done a brilliant, much better job than I did, right? But somehow I was adamant that it had to be me that did it. And it's trusting that voice, right? And I am new, and I'm loving what you just said. Sorry, there's a lot of thoughts coming out at the same time. I love what you said, Sallie, about the stages of faith development, because even Mindy and I, as we started this beautiful series on Mondays, I acknowledge that I am the prodigal daughter, right? I am the one coming back and wanting to believe, and and I think that's part of it, right? Like, you're wanting for it to be part of your life. And it doesn't matter that skeptics come in and question the whole, I don't know, there's so many questions and critics towards, faith and whether spirituality or religion, whatever.
That's the devil's biggest lie.
It's like,
The devil doesn't need you to worship him. He just needs you to not worship God. And he
just
does
needs to
everything he
doubt.
gets you to not do that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So this is, for sure, we're having, Sallie back to guide us through, and especially as I love the fusion with psychology, because you see, I like that we all bring a slight different flavor to it, right? Like how our proficiency comes through. So, Sallie, as your parting thought for leaders and for those that live with leaders,
Yeah.
what is one key reframing or framing that you could offer to us?
Yeah. I would say embrace the parts that you are shielding from examination, because all of those things that are unexamined are going to be expressed and projected. And once you do that, you're able to lead yourself in your own faith growth, and you're able to lead others in your own faith growth. And you meet them where they are. That's what Jesus did when he and Peter had the conversation on the shore about it, Peter, do you love me? And we can get into that because it's beautiful. It's a fabulous example of this whole thing that we've been talking about with leadership and forgiveness. And
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay, we're coming back for that. And Mindy, what are your guidance for this week? We start the week with some thoughts for reflection. Sallie, sorry, I forgot to mention that. Mindy?
I'm always, there is, read the Bible, open it up, read the Bible. If you're trying to figure out where to start in Psalms. Those are a lot of songs that were written by David and written by people about God and just the glory of God and what God does for us in our lives. I feel like it's a way to really kind of connect with him. It's a great way to do that. And especially as leaders, because when we're not connected and we don't have that confidence, that inner confidence from God, it's like you said, Sallie, it's that shadow that's there, and it gets manifested and it gets projected in ways in which we may not want for it to be projected in.
Absolutely. In my advice and tip to all of the newbies is don't start reading the Bible from the beginning. I tell you that because I've tried it a gazillion times, and I know the first few pages of Genesis like the back of my hand, right? But love what Mindy just said. Start with another book. Right? You don't have to start right at the beginning, because it also seems like an overwhelming task to have. I'm a huge believer of the microbook, and when I pick a book, like it might as well be a Russian author, right? Like that thick is just like a little bit overwhelming.
So I'm going to do a little plug for Tara Lee Cobble. She does read the Bible in a year. That's what I've done twice, and it's 15 minutes a day.
Okay,
and
I can do
read
that.
the Bible in a year. So we can maybe put that link in there for Tara Lee Cobble. It's Bible in a year.
Okay, we certainly will. And we're excited, of course, as we say goodbye to today's episode, that we are now streaming and podcasting. You are able to find us where podcasts are found on Amazon Music, on Apple Music, Spotify, and Audible. So super excited. It's a short week for us in Canada, but wishing you guys a happy upcoming Memorial Day weekend. And we will see you every Monday at 1 for Leading with Faith. Thank you. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Until next time.
Bye.